Hello everybody, welcome to Cape Rugby TV, Wednesday night, and we talk to you about what's happening in the world of Western Province Club Rugby. For those of you who've just joined us, Cape Rugby TV looking at the clubs in Western Province. More than 110 clubs playing every weekend, very exciting. Right folks, so we've got a lineup for you today, which of course takes a look at the top six that's now been finalized. We now know who is going into the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, or at least where the semi-finals are going to be, and the finals. But we now know, finally, after this year's season, who will be playing in the top six. And that will, of course, lead to the promotion into the various leagues. Let me introduce you to my panel this evening. But before I do that, this is also just a reminder that we will be paying a tribute, Cape Rugby TV style tribute, to Chester Williams, the absolute legend and friend of everybody in the world of rugby. But we'll talk to you more about that a little bit later. So please stay tuned as we do a little bit of reminiscing and sharing around Chester Williams. Let me introduce you to my panel this evening. Jerome Parvata. Jerome, nice to have you back.
Yeah, good to be back, JP, under not so good circumstances, but as they say in life, the show must go on.
Yeah, we're going to spend a bit of time talking about Chester at the end of the show, and of course we ask our listeners to stay tuned. But before we do that, you've been a lifelong friend of Chester's. Must be very difficult for you.
Yeah, it is, JP, and I'm not afraid to say that he was my best friend, and he was many people's friend. He was everybody's friend, but I'm not afraid to say he really was my best friend. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk to you a little bit about that later, and we really appreciate the fact that you've taken out your time to join us and talk about Chester, and I'm sure he would want us to remember his time positively. Faisal Felton also joins us. Faisal, it's fantastic to have you on the show. Of course, you're instrumental in being here today because it's the top six. The league structures in the Super Leagues have now finally been completed. What a season so far, really down to the wire for all the teams.
No, good evening, Japes. It's good to be here. Yeah, definitely. I think this weekend it's boiling down the climax of club rugby. A lot of the clubs, there's some highs and there's some lows, but I think this next 2 weeks and that there, it's all about, down to the wire. Up until now, we don't know who the winners are. So yeah, let's wait and see what happens.
Right, folks, big thanks, of course, to our partners on board with us here at Cape Rugby TV, Direct Access, your financial services partner, Score Energy Drinks. And you will know that the Score is, of course, on board with Western Province Club Rugby Sevens. That's coming up and kicking off in about 3 weeks' time. Not 3 weeks, well, shortly. And we'll talk to Faisal Felton about that as well. MChem 24-hour pharmacy on the corner of N1 and Durban Road. Yes Electrical, Dulux Maitland, and of course Intercape, the official transport provider to Western Province Rugby and the DHL Stormers. We're going to take a look at the matches between St. George's and Helderberg. We were out there over the weekend, as well as the highlights that were shared with us. Durbell up against Marties. That game was also important in terms of the finishing in positions 1 and 2, but Jerome Parvata will tell you that Durbell would have had to score more than 300 points to catch up on log difference. Jerome, just before we go to the Durbell Marties game, I mean, it's been a great season so far. If we just look at, now we're at the top six, and we just look at how close, especially Super League B and C was towards the end there.
Yeah, JP, it was a great season. I think all the teams, they tried their best and they played good rugby. And also with us, with the barometer, I must say, I was, this was, last week I was wrong with a few of.
Were you? I can't remember. Tell me, what were you wrong with?
No, I was wrong with the Vineyards Brunswick game. And there was another game that I was wrong with.
Yeah.
Scottsdene.
Scottsdene, of course, yes. There were
so it's exactly what you say, and we've been talking about this, and any day anybody can win.
Yeah, no, it's been fantastic. It's been really interesting looking at it so far. Right, folks, let's get the ball rolling. Then Durbell were up against Marties in Super League A. Let's take a look at some of the highlights, and then we'll take a look and see who finished in the top six. This Cape Rugby TV feature is brought to you by Direct Access Financial Services, Score Energy Drinks, and MChem 24-hour pharmacy. This Cape Rugby TV feature is brought to you by Direct Access Financial Services, Score Energy Drinks, and MChem 24-Hour Pharmacy. Welcome back then, folks. Yes, so there we have it. The result then for Durban up against Stellenbosch, and a 42-33 win for Stellenbosch against Durban. Let's quickly then take a look at the logs before we discuss this match. But there you'll see now, top of the pile, Stellenbosch, UCT, Durban, False Bay, Unimil, and UWC. Those are your 6 finalists. Jerome, considering the fact that 1 and 2 was pretty much going to be settled, Stellenbosch just needed to get those points on the board. They were going to finish 1 and 2. How important would it have been for Durban to play this match? Because they knew that it wasn't going to make any real difference in terms of log, and they had already put themselves in a position to have a home quarter-final.
JP, I think it's a bit of pride, and if you look at the score, you could see Durban, they didn't just play; they played to win. They were very competitive, and also it would have been good to for a coach and for the team to go into playoffs with you can say that you've beat sort of almost the best team in Cape Town, Marties. So I think that they had a great season, and up until the last game, they could have also been the score. The score was very close. So, I think was a great game to
play rugby to the max, to the end, 80 minutes.
Exactly.
Always, yeah. Faisal, let's have a quick chat about the structures here. We now see Super League A, B, and C. For these teams, and just for the fans out there that are busy watching the show, Stellenbosch and UCT, as we see, are on the log now. Folks, let's quickly just have a look back at the log here, and you can see your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Stellenbosch and UCT are sitting at 1 and 2, followed by 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is Durban, False Bay, Unimil, and UWC. Faisal, just explain to us the difference between positions 1 and 2 and 4, 5, and 6 in terms of Super League A.
So what happens now is position 1 and 2 is automatically in the semi-finals. That will take place on the 21st of September at City Park. And then position 3, 4, 5, and 6, they will play against each other. 3 plays against 6, 4 plays against 5. That will be this weekend. So basically the winners of the so-called quarterfinals will play against 1 and 2 on the 21st.
So, of course, that's one of the real bonus factors of why you want to, Jerome, why you want to end up in position 1 and 2, because you can have a week off and you can go straight into semi-final. But also the flip side is you wanted to end in position 3 and 4 so that you can have a home quarterfinal.
Yeah, there's a lot of permutations in how you can see that, but at the end of the day, they must still play against each other, and it's always good to play at home because you have a bit of advantage. But in playoffs, playoffs for me, it doesn't matter where you play.
But have you noticed that, Faisal, when we play derby matches, when we play playoffs, the scoreline is normally much shorter, much smaller. I mean, I've noticed that. That's my annual mistake that I make on Super Brew.
Yeah.
Is I forget when the teams are playing derby matches. Don't go with a big score.
Yeah, I think again, like Jerome said, the prelims, the first round, everybody plays against each other. You can't take anything, into the quarterfinals and semifinals. On the day, it's any team. It's a team that wants it, a team that's hungry. Yeah. And if you're looking at position 1 and 2, as you said as well, you get the advantage. But I think what's also the advantage is when it comes to promotion, 1 and 2 is automatically the finalists will get promotion from Super League B and C. But then you have the loser who has now the opportunity, extra bite at the carrot to play in the playoffs and that.
Right, folks, so the quarterfinals are coming up this weekend. It's Durban up against UWC, and then, of course, False Bay have got home ground advantage against Ismail Dolly and Unimil. Let's take a look at the barometer this weekend. False Bay got home ground advantage against Unimil. Jerome, let's bring you here into the picture. Ismail Dolly, we know he'll be coming out with all sorts of strategic plans to win this match. So Ismail Dolly will want to make sure that he gets his team to play on the front foot here. Looking at the barometer, the favor is in terms of False Bay. They've got a 79% win rate versus the Unimil 57% strike rate, and they've got a home ground advantage.
Yes, JP, as I was saying earlier on, I won't easily say the barometer this week is right, but we can't take it away that falls by. It's going to be tough falls by, but we also know what Unimil can bring. And as you were saying, Ismail Dolly, he's a smart coach, come a long way. So he will want to end up with a win. So it's going to be a close one.
Faisal Felton, would you like to give it a call here? Our experts have, on a few occasions, made the mistake of going up against the barometer.
I think from my side, JP, I'll go with Unimil on this. I think looking at the results of last year, False Bay not a team, in the knockout phases. So I think from Unimil being the underdog, they're hungry, they've got nothing to lose, they're going to go out there, they're going to play, and I think there's going to be upset coming.
You see an upset coming. All right, folks, there you have it then from Jerome Parvater and Faisal Felton. Jerome is going with, did you say you're going with Unimil?
False.
You're here next week, Faisal.
I'll be here. If they win, I'll be here.
All right, folks, then we've got the head-to-head. Jerome and Faisal going head-to-head. Folks, we'll take an ad break. When we come back from the break, we'll take a look at what happened in Super League B this weekend. Derby time at Gustro. St. George's up against Helderberg. And we also know who's the finalists, or at least the top 6 in Super League B. Back in a sec. Don't go away. Welcome back, everybody. Cape Rugby TV. We're going to be taking a look at Super League B now, as well as, and then shortly after the next break at Super League C. And for those of you that have just joined us on the show with me this evening is Jerome Parvater and Faisal Felton. And a little bit later in the show, we are going to take a look at, or just try and remember our close friend Chester Williams. So please don't go away as we do a little Cape Rugby TV tribute to Chester Williams. Folks, it was St. George's up against Helderberg. They, of course, had to play in a crunch match to see who was going to end up in the final positions in Super League B. And as you know, Super League B has been down to the wire every single match. Let's take a look at the highlights. St. George's up against Helderberg, and we'll also speak to the captains and coaches from both squads. This Cape Rugby TV feature is brought to you by Direct Access Financial Services, Score Energy Drinks, and MChem 24-Hour Pharmacy. This Cape Rugby TV feature is brought to you by Direct Access Financial Services, Score Energy Drinks, and MChem 24-Hour Pharmacy. Right, folks, there you go. St. George's up against Helderberg. Of course, a big derby match there, and again, a match that could have gone in either direction. Let's quickly look at the final results then for Super League B. Goodwood coming off a loss there against Kelsdorp, 42 points to 27. All Saints beating Rangers, 50-29. Franschhoek went down to Vineyards, 40-39. Hamlets beating Collegians, 59-24. St. George's then ending up with a 37-28 result over Helderberg, and Young People's with a win over Macassar. Jerome, particularly important game that for those sides, and of course some of the other teams were also looking at the games to see where they would be ending up in Super League on the log. But for St. George's, they've now secured the position there. They'll be happy with that result.
Yeah, definitely. It was a tough game for them also over the weekend, as we just see. But they definitely will be happy. I think they've worked hard. So all the teams and Super B, big surprises also over this weekend. But yeah, I think that's basically how the season went, and then I think the top 6 is the true reflection at the end of how that season went.
If we look at some of the other results there, Faisal, of course, one of the big results over the weekend was Vineyards with a 1-point win over Franschhoek. We saw last week, we covered some of their youth clubs. Al-Azhar from Paarl and Al-Azhar from Cape Town had a nice youth day there, and they were obviously preparing for a big weekend, knowing last weekend was there. But of course, we had the delay and it was played out this weekend then. But a particular comeback for Vineyards to go and win over Franschhoek and secure that place in the top 6.
No, definitely. I think no one expected it. I think from Jerome's side, everybody predicted. I think Franschhoek would have won it. Playing at home, playing with a crowd, coming off from a great season, no one expected. And again, I think it boils down again to the underdog, something to play for. That top 6 competition. On the day, Vineyards had everything to play for in that. If they wanted to be in the top 6, they had to, go out there and win that game, and I think they've done it. That's what we want. We want those upsets. Nothing, should be determined and predicted.
Isn't it also a fantastic performance from Hamlets up on the west coast? Really, they've got to drive so far. They bring the buses out. They travel with the fans. They've had a fantastic away record. For Hamlets to end up at first in the first round of the league is a great performance.
No, definitely. I think with Hamlets, it's been coming on now for the last couple of seasons. They've been up there, been in the running. I think this year is their year. And they've done very well. Also, great support, great following in that there. And, to go out there and play at Maumeri and that there, it's always difficult for any team. So well done to them. I think it's a position that they well deserved. Kelsdorp as well, they did very well. 1 and 2 position. So that top 6 again, it's very close. I was looking at Super League A, looking at Super League B. The top 2 positions are within 1 point, 3 and 4 is within 1 point, and 5 and 6. So definitely, there's lots to play for.
Jerome, Belleville will be a little bit disappointed with 1 or 2 results that might just have slipped through their fingers. They, of course, didn't play over the weekend and were a hair's breadth away from position 2. But of course, now they have the opportunity to make up for it.
JP, I think they must actually be lucky that they're in position 3, because they haven't played for a few weeks. They haven't played. And for them, if they were in position 2, it would have been tough, because when would they've played again? It's just longer and longer.
Your point is being you need match
They need, yeah. So they're playing St. George's.
Well, yes, let's quickly take a look at this weekend's fixtures. Of course, this weekend it's Franschhoek up against St. George's, and Belleville take on Vineyards. Those are your fixtures this weekend. So, yes, Belleville will be hosting Vineyards, and Vineyards is going to come off. But we'll take a look at the barometer in a second. In fact, let's go, before we look at the barometer, it's been interesting, though, looking at Super League B, just the shift. If you look at Super League B in the first few weeks of the league, Helderberg was sitting at the top. Franschhoek was sitting at the top. And then Hamlet started climbing. This league has been a very difficult league.
No, definitely. I think Super League B is the most exciting league. I think that's, if you look at the competition, everything is evenly matched. Any team can win, and I think that's what the excitement was. No one knew who the top 6 would be, at the end of the season. So, like you said, I think Helderberg, we thought at one stage, we even looked at Belhar. We thought they will do well, but yeah, I mean, the league is very strong.
Yeah. Right, folks, let's take a look then at the barometer this weekend. We'll take a look at our first fixture. Belleville hosting Vineyards, as we said. Belleville then ended up at number 3 and Vineyards ended up squeezed in at number 6. A fantastic performance there. The barometer says, Jerome, that Belleville have the advantage. They score on average at home 33. Interestingly enough, Vineyards, when they play away, also score 33, which in terms of the home and away average stats, the result should be 33 all. But having said that, Belleville have got the home or away average factor in terms of their side of things. But interestingly enough, Vineyards have got attack factor and defense factor in their favor.
Yeah, look, Belleville, they really struggled this whole season because teams scored a lot of points against them. That's one of their weak points is their defense. But I think because they know they can score tries, they don't work hard enough on the defense because they know they can score tries. But games like this, your defense need to be jacked up. So for Warren, Isaac and Regan, I think they have to work on their defense because Vineyards can also score tries. So and they defend a little bit better.
How much of a factor are the fans going to be, Faisal? The fan factor is in favor of Belleville.
I think Belleville's going to come all out on Saturday. The fans are going to be behind them. From my side, I think we'll give Belleville the upper edge.
So you're going with a barometer?
I'm going with a barometer. I think, like Jerome says, it's going to be a high-scoring game. Looking at it, but I think Belleville will edge through.
And Jerome Parvato, anything from your side? Barometer, right or wrong?
Got to be
Barometer
careful.
is right.
The barometer is right. We'll see next week where the barometer has put us. Of course, Franschhoek are hosting St. George's. As you know, they lost by only 1 point to Vineyards. So this weekend, St. George's is going to have their work cut out for them as they travel to Franschhoek. That'll be 2 home games in a row for Franschhoek, Jerome. If we look at the barometer tells us that the favor is leaning in the direction of Franschhoek. Fan factor, defense factor, attack factor, the win-loss draw factor, all of the factors look like they're pointing in favor of Franschhoek. St. George's, though, they did their hard work. They beat Helderberg to get into the top 6. Too tight to call, maybe, or can you call it?
Look, I would say St. George's have a bit of experience on their side. They've played Super A, but this weekend I don't think Franschhoek. You don't go to Franschhoek, and I think the fans were disappointed about that result. So I know also going to Franschhoek now this week at the training session, the fans will be there, and they will tell the guys what they must do. At the training session, there's a lot of people will be there, so they will be there.
They're coaching, the fans are coaching.
So it will be tough to go there this week and take points there. So I think the barometer is right.
You're going with the barometer, Faisal. This is going to be a big game for both teams. The Lulu boys will be looking to play for pride. They'll come out guns blazing.
No, definitely. I think the loss the weekend, Franschhoek have got a lot to play for. I think maybe it's good to have a loss like that. To keep them a bit grounded, and I think this weekend again, they're going to go out there and they're going to prove to the fans, that they deserve to be, playing at Newlands in the finals and at this. So, from my side, I think Franschhoek will probably edge, but I think also, St. George's is going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. Like Jerome says, they've got the experience, but I think Franschhoek will edge through.
We'll go into the break with the coaches and captains from Helderberg St. George's, and when we come back, we'll take a look at the fixtures and the top 6 in Super League C. Don't forget, a little bit later in the show, we'll be talking about the life and times of Chester Williams, so please don't go away. This Cape Rugby TV feature is brought to you by Direct Access Financial Services, Score Energy Drinks and MChem 24-hour Pharmacy.
Ek is baie tevrede vir die jaar en ons het gesê van die begin af as jy Super Liga moet gaan speel, dan kan jy nie 'n wedstryd verloor nie. So dis een van die goeders en dis 'n bouproses gelukkig. Dis 'n nuwe struktuur wat ons in plek gesit het en jy kan nie hierdie struktuur in 1 jaar afkry nie. So die laaste paar minute is die struktuur gespeel, eerste helfte ook en toe druk ons 3. So die ouens net start believing in die struktuur en dan gaan ons daar kom. 2 maande gaan 'n bietjie rus, kom by hulle vrouens, gaan geniet dit. Los bietjie van rugby, gaan enjoy net vir hulle self. En dan kom ons November by mekaar, dan sal ons die gym en dan gaan ons bietjie ons conditioning net bietjie op standaard kry wat dit nie nou is nie.
Ons plan was met die eerste 8 te speel. Maar ongelukkig het het ons 'n bietjie losgebreek daar, maar haar eerste 20 minute was crucial vir ons en ons het ons gameplan gespeel in die begin. Dit was ons het heeltyd probeer vorentoe gegaan, maar met al die nuwe spelers, nuwe coaching staf wat ingekom het en alles, ek dink die span het baie goed gedoen. Die klub self het baie goed gedoen. En ek dink ja, soos jy sê, ons gaan definitief van hier af opbou en verder gaan. Dis 'n great span wat ons het, is net daai fine tuning.
Ons het geweet Helderberg gaan kom die eerste 20, 30 minute. Hulle gaat ons weer hou van bal, hulle gaat met hulle forward speel, forwards, hulle gaat ons kom in die vaste van zitten. Ons het dit op job en toe ons die geleentheid kry om dit te kan oordraai in punte, het ons het dadelik so geskep, so die plan het gewerk. Maar die aim was altyd om in die top 6 te kom. Ons sal reg wees. Ons hoop net die basering bly weg. Ons weet nou net nie hoe is die ouens nie, maar sodra ons gaan reach waar ons wil wees, dan is die playing fields gelyk.
Yeah, I'm very proud of my boys. I brought it through. The heat was unbearable today. I think they had us in the first 20. I think our fitness came through in the last 20 and we brought it home. We're going to prep very well this week. We want this. We've been talking about this for the last 2 months. It was a bit upside down this season. There was times that we looked at we weren't going to make it, but now that we're finally here, we're going to make use of it.
This Cape Rugby TV feature is brought to you by Direct Access Financial Services, Score Energy Drinks and MChem 24-hour Pharmacy. Well, welcome back everybody, Cape Rugby TV. But before we get on with Super League C, let me just remind you that you can win yourself a case of Score Energy Drinks. You see the Score behind me here now. Score is of course the partner to the Western Province Club Rugby Sevens. That's coming up a little bit later. And of course the draw, there's apparently more than 50 teams taking part in the Score Club Rugby Sevens. It's going to be massive. If you're a club, Faisal, are the registrations still open for clubs who want to play?
It's most last minute. If there's guys that are keen, that's interested, we might be able to accommodate them. But currently we got 52.
52 teams already. If you're a club and you're not playing, you're going to miss out. This is very exciting. You should be there. Remember, it's not about playing your first team who want to take a break. It's about entering 15 or 20 players who just want to play sevens rugby and stay active. So that's a Score Club Rugby Sevens this year. So make sure that you participate. It's going to be at CPUT. Lots of space, lots of fun, and of course, lots of prizes and bonuses. And Cape Rugby TV will be there to cover it. So if you want to win yourself a case of Score Energy Drinks, then all you need to do is SMS the word SCORE to 33090. SMS the word SCORE to 33090. Terms and conditions, of course, apply. Congratulations to last week's winner, Estelle Minar. Estelle, somebody from Cape Rugby TV is going to be in touch with you shortly. Right, let's take a look at the results from Super League C. Hands on Hearts then beating Wraithby 55 points to 12. Carlamore 40-24 over Kraaifontein. Langa 25-14 over Blue Jets. Manenberg Rangers went down to Morningstar. Scottsdene went down to Strand, and Strand United 58-29 over Elsies River. Right, folks, so those are your fixtures there. Let's quickly take a look then who ended up in the top of the top 6 in Super League C. And there you have it. Hands on Hearts, Strand, Scottsdene, Lunga, Vanille Villages and Strand United. Faisal, there's 1 or 2 teams that just didn't make it. Morningstar, for example, let it slip on the odd occasion. We thought that they were going to squeeze into Super League C.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's also Super League C very close in that there. I think everybody, had the opportunity, had the chance up until the last game. But I think just on that, I just want to commend, I think, Manenberg. It's been a tough season for them. But, but they've carried it through. They played, they fulfilled their fixtures and that there. So I think well done to them. I think that's what it's about as well. We speak about the teams that are winning. But I think we also need to look at the guys, that got out there on a Saturday and, give everything. And again, well done to them.
And I'd like to give a bit of credit there to Elsies Rivier, who, Jerome, we looked at that result. That is what kept them out of the relegation space. And that was, of course, their win against Morningstar. A good win for Elsies and put them in a safe space.
Yeah, I mean, Elsies also very good club, so I think they also deserve to where they are. I think they could have done a bit better, but it's almost like Super B.
Yeah,
any team on the day is close.
If we look at that at that top 6 there, then Hands and Hearts have done particularly well. Scottsdene, they were at the top of the log. This entire season, and it really just switched between Hands and Hearts and Strand and Hands and Hearts and Strand. But this weekend they dropped the ball a little bit and they went down to Strand, and this has now put themselves in position 3. They'll be kicking themselves.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the last week's results on the barometer which I got wrong. But in saying that, Strand also did well, and I mean they're a tough side and they've done well for where they are. They've been struggling for the past few years, so they up there. So hopefully they can also prove that they can play high up.
Faisal, I think Langa themselves will be happy with their performance this season. They've been around the top 6, 7, quietly staying in a position that they have now secured themselves. They'll be happy with that result.
No, definitely. I think the last couple of seasons they've always been there, up in the running. Also, like you say, very quiet. Everybody's focusing on the top, and they always tend to sneak in. I mean, if you look at that position 2, 3, and 4, it's sitting at 57 and 55. It's literally 2 points, from those 2 positions. So, I think on the day, there's no actual favourites. I think anybody can take it, and I think that's what it boils down to. Coming in our quarterfinals and that there, it's open. Langa might be a surprising. Putting my money on Langa. I think we will see them in the semi-finals.
You see, right? That is a big call. Right, let's quickly look at the fixtures then coming up this week. We see then Scottsdene up against Strand United. That's your first quarterfinal. And then Langa are hosting Penil Villages. Let's take a look at the barometer then, Jerome. The barometer, Langa up against Penil Villages, are 4 and 5 fixtures. Langa are scoring on average 30 points at home versus the 28 of away of Penil Villages. The barometer says that it's in favour of a Langa. What do you think?
Barometer is correct.
The barometer is correct. Faisal Felton, barometer right or wrong?
Definitely, the barometer is correct. That home ground advantage, as I said earlier, Langa, they're going to be surprised.
Langa will be a surprise, right? We look at our next measurement here. Scottsdene up against Strand United. And the barometer says that it's in favour of Scottsdene. Jerome Parvater?
Barometer is correct. Scottsdene don't want to lose another game.
Faisal Felton, we throw it at you.
No, definitely. I think Scottsdene will take it this weekend. Again, the home ground advantage, and coming back from a loss the weekend, they definitely.
Folks, we're going to take an ad break. When we come back from the break, we will be taking a look at some of the fixtures coming up in the Promotion League before we go to our tribute to Chester Williams. Back in a sec. Well, welcome back everybody, it's Cape Rugby TV. Tonight is all about the top 6 and the Promotion League, and of course we'll be talking about Chester Williams in a second. So we're quickly going to take a look at the fixtures coming up this week, but before we do that, let's see the results in the Promotion League. Albions 42-40 over CPUT, Masi Pumlele 29-30 loss, a 1-point loss against Violets. Noordlikers 36-31 win over Blakes, and then Peninsula going down to Eersterivier 41 points to 22. Most fitting here, Jerome, let's quickly talk about this. Albions beating CPUT 42 points to 40. I mean, that's an enormous win for them, beating the Varsity Shield champions, CPUT. But for the folks who don't know, that was of course Chester Williams' previous club.
Yeah, I could just imagine that a lot of emotion into that game for Albions. But myself and Faisal was also talking now and say, like, it just proves, JP, it's not Varsity Shield or Varsity Cup, it's Western Province Club Rugby. So yeah, you have to perform every week, and it's a great result for Albions.
Yeah, Faisal Violets winning by just 1 point against Masi Pumlele. I don't want to call it a derby, but these teams have squared off against each other quite a bit, and it just goes to show a little bit of how equal that league is, because these two come from the same league.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, 1 point difference could have gone either way. Yeah, well done to Violets. I think it's good for them. I think they've done their homework this year. They put a lot of effort, and it's evident in terms of how they've performed.
Yeah. Right, let's look at the fixtures then coming up in the Promotion League this weekend. Violets up against Noordlikers. Peninsula take on CPUT. Hamadias take on Masi Pumlele. And Eersterivier take on Blakes. Results in the PAL League. PAL Rangers with a big win over Simondium. River Stones losing by just 2 points against Lower Paarl, 26-24. And then, of course, Young Gardens went down to Allendale this weekend. I think that must have been an admirable performance there from Riverstones to do so well against Lower Paarl, who are, of course, sitting at position 1 and 2, together with Paarl Rangers in the Paarl League. So let's take a look there at the log. Lower Paarl at the top of the log in the Paarl region at the moment, followed by Paarl Rangers, and there you see Riverstones. Unfortunately, the gap between 3 and 2 is just a little bit too big to close. Look out for the next match against Riverstone. Allendale, that's going to be a big one. But this weekend sees Young Standards up against Simondium. Riverstones take on Peril United. Paarl Rangers up against Young Gardens. Lower Paarl up against Paarl. Violet's Paarl at least. Right, folks, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk a little bit about the life and times of Chester Williams. We unfortunately do not have all the footage of the big broadcasters. There's plenty of footage out there on YouTube, but we thought that we would share what we have here on Cape Rugby TV. We'll be back in a sec. All right, welcome back, everybody. It's Cape Rugby TV. As you know, sadly, Chester Williams passed away last week, Friday. We, of course, will remember Chester fondly, friend of Cape Rugby TV, and we're fortunate enough to have Jerome Parvada on the show with us, as well as Faisal Felton from Western Province Rugby. Jerome, you were Chester's best friend. How do you remember Chester?
JP, everybody's talking about if you look at Chester, you just see that smile, and every day the same person, but you also know when he's angry, then stay out of his way.
I've never seen Chester angry. That would
not a lot of people have seen that,
yeah.
But being with Chester, playing with him, coaching, helping him at UWC, I know when Chester is angry.
Tell us a little bit about your time playing with Chester. I mean, he goes back, he comes from, we mentioned earlier on, he played at Albion's rugby club together with Tinus Lanier. He of course grew up in Paarl, played in Western Province most of his life. We know that he spent some time with the Lions, but tell us a little bit about his playing history with you.
Yeah, JP, obviously Chester in Tinus Lanier came, I think I started 89 playing Currie Cup for Western Province, and they started in 1990. And Chester, and I've also before then playing Western Province League with Chester. So him and Tinus were always on my case. How's it playing Currie Cup? What are you doing? What are you guys doing? And obviously it's hard work. And Chester decided that he's not going to turn back. He's going to train, and he went on his own to go train a lot, and reap the rewards later on in playing for Western Province. And we've been on tours, many tours together. The last tour we went together was 93 with Western Province to Australia and New Zealand, playing for Western Province. And Chester wasn't the biggest guy, but the big heart he have, him and Tinus were known for tackling big guys back. And I remember when we played against New South Wales, Jason Little and Tim Horan were playing, and Chester and Tinus were playing centre that day for Western Province. Yeah. And Tim Horan and Jason Little later on, they were that time the best centre combination in world rugby. And Tinus and Chester were just tackling, especially, I mean, Tinus was bigger, but Chester, and they couldn't understand it. And after the game they said, but who is this guys? Because they've never been tackled so much in their life. And later on they said they tried to skip past and not getting the ball because these guys are just flying in. So yeah, and I also remember, JP, we played against Namibia in Windhoek, and Davis Neyman back then was our coach. So he told Chester at halftime, we were standing, and he told Chester, jy moet jou sokkies optrek. So Chester said, Coach, I'm trying, really trying my best, but I'll do better. So he said, nee, trek jou kouse op. So because Chester is he's not the biggest guy, and his calves were not big enough, so his socks would keep on falling off, and Davy hated if your socks fall off, so Chester thought that he must play. And in this whole game, like Tinus was like just on Chester's case. pull up your socks, pull up your socks, pull up your socks. So that was a funny moment for me when it's just like, yeah, coach, I will, because he was like, he's a perfectionist, and his pants must be right tight fit, and his jersey must be right, but unfortunately couldn't keep his socks up.
He certainly set the tone for sport in South Africa. I'd like to ask you a little bit about pre-unification and you know the terrible times that the country was going through at that time. But he was the first player of colour into the World Cup in the only player of colour in the Springbok team in 1995, and obviously he set a big tone for as a role model in South Africa. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, JP, I remember clearly he got injured and he almost didn't make the final of the World Cup. But I remember speaking to him on the phone, and he said, yes, he's a bit down. He doesn't feel good, but he's not gonna turn back. He's gonna, even if he needs to fake to the doctor and say that he's 100% ready, but he's gonna be tough, and he's gonna play in that World Cup final. And he said that he don't want to let South Africa down. And on the day he played, and he had a lot of pain while he was playing that game. He had a lot of pain, but he didn't show it because he wanted to make the nation proud. And what better guy to do it for South Africa? I mean, he's a true legend. And him and Nelson Mandela on that day, they basically got South Africa back on track. Yeah. And people up until today are just, if they talk about rugby wherever you are in the world, they talk about Chester Williams, and then they talk about Nelson Mandela. So that's the two icons in South Africa, not in sport, but the whole of South Africa. That's how people will remember Chester.
Yeah. You, Tinus Lanier, Chester, a number of other players, you were playing pre-unification during the days of apartheid. That must have been difficult for you guys, and it must have kept you also together in a sense.
It's true what you say, JP. It was tough because people know you, they recognize you, and in that years South Africa wasn't really. There was a lot of things still to happen before apartheid was gone, and we played before apartheid. We played, and it was tough because people always almost like verbally abuse you wherever you go, and you really had to be careful where you were going. So the three of us were always together, and but we always knew that things will change for the better. And yeah, it was tough, but we almost sort of wanted to show the world that you can do it. It doesn't matter what's your skin color.
Yeah. Folks, Chester Williams, close friend of all of us here at Cape Rugby TV, and one of the things, Jerome, that let's take a look here. He was on the TV show with us just 2 weeks ago, and he was of course coaching at UWC. And one of the things that he said is just how important education is for the players. We thought we'd show you just a little clip from when he was on the show with us last. Chester, at UW's, the academic side, very important. I mean, you have to the students. You can't just play rugby. You're actually at a university. You have to study.
Well, the most important thing for when I recruit a player is that he needs to get the marks first to qualify to come and study at UWC, and once they've studied, they have to get the 60 credits to play the following year. And I'm actually very hard on that, because if the player needs to go and do study, I'll allow him rather to go and study than playing rugby, because he can always come and play rugby, but if he doesn't pass, he can't play rugby for us anymore. And if you look at the Springboks is how many years? We are 100 and something years, and there's about only 900 and something players, Springbok players. It's one every other year become a Springbok, and the people need to understand that if you look at also the competition, next year there's no more under 19s, there's no more super sport challenge, I think. So they have to go and see how they can get their education right and play rugby, or make sure that they get a job and play club rugby. If he doesn't become a professional rugby player, definitely will have a profession somehow, whether it's a biokineticist or a doctor or a teacher or a conditioning trainer, but at least he's got that education.
I've heard you lately on radio, it's been in the newspaper, you're recruiting players to come to UWC. How does that work? Is that on the cards? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, of course. The press release out where I want players to apply at UWC, obviously rugby players, and they must obviously just pass with the bachelor's and see what they want to study at UWC. But they also have to be under the age of 22 as a first year to study at UWC.
Okay. Chester Williams was on the show with us just 2 or 3 weeks ago, and Faisal, a remarkable input from Chester's side there, from a Western Province rugby side. What did he mean to Western Province? You can see what he did at UWC. What did he mean for Western Province?
No, definitely, JP. I think definitely an icon, somebody that youngsters look up to, and that there. And as you said, now with education, now being a role model for future leaders and future players and students and that. So definitely, I think from Western Province's side, and that there's definitely somebody that we've looked up to. And as I said to Jerome early on, I think when I started at Province, I think way back in '97, I think that time Chester just left. He was the development officer, I think, with Tini, when I started then. And I know, like especially with Tini and that there, and Chester, very close, as Jerome says, they were very close, tight unit and that. And I think, back then, that's what rugby's about, the closeness, the family. And I think we experience it now, especially the passing of tennis and that, everybody coming together. And, it's a reminder, I think, to all of us, what we want, where we want to be, what we want to achieve and that there. So it's very sad. As I said, I look back and look at the video. Today, here, tomorrow, you're gone. And I think from us, it's just again that reminder to all of us, to appreciate it.
We have to appreciate every minute with everybody. Jerome, I'm going to start closing up now. You're of course at the UWC Memorial. There's a state funeral for Chester. We'll give some of that information in a second. But just one of the things that I remember looking at the World Cup poster. There's an iconic World Cup poster where Joel Stransky drop kicks the ball over the post, and I think many people have got that poster on their walls. And the irony about that poster is that there's only 14 players on that poster. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, it's Chester's not on that photo. I think he was behind the poles.
Yeah.
But the back of the so you couldn't see him, JP.
But
and
don't you think that? Sorry, carry on.
It is. Chester. It's like Chester is. He was going on with his business, but he never wanted to be in the limelight. He was just a plain guy going on with his business, and stuff like that didn't bother him.
And I think that's almost there's a symbolic message in there as well. The fact that you see 14 players, we win the World Cup, and the one person that is actually the symbol of where South Africa is going is hidden behind the poles. There's a hidden message in there for all of us, and I think if one considers it maybe a little bit deeper, I don't know, one would call it sad or positive, but it's interesting and maybe allows us to reflect on just what an impact he had on sport in South Africa. Because going a step further than that, I tried to do a little bit of research on Chester, and I knew that I didn't really need to do research because you were here and you'd be able to tell us everything about his life and times. But I had forgotten just how big an icon he was on a global level, because when you know, he coached at Uganda, we know he was in Romania, but two of the interesting things that and of course he was in the Clint Eastwood movie Invictus, he was portrayed by McNeil Hendricks, but two of the things that I'd spotted, it was that he had carried the Olympic torch on behalf of South Africa on two occasions, at the 2004 Summer Olympics in Athens and 2016, also at the Summer Olympics in Rio, where Chester represented South Africa carrying the flag, the torch, the Olympic torch. That's a global icon. I mean, he's really done so much domestically, regionally here for us in South Africa, but also help keep South Africa on the map in terms of where we've come as a nation.
Yeah, JP, it's true. I mean, it's not many people, and I would say Chester passing on, he's still young, but what he achieved in his young life is not many people write a book while you're young. Not many people are in a movie. Not many people can say they have their own beer, which is very important. There's not a lot of people that can say that. He has done that, and he was in numerous advertisements and on TV, and he was I'm almost say like after Mandela, he is the face, and he still is the face of South Africa.
Yeah, Jerome, we're going to leave it at that. I think you've kind of wrapped it up for us. We know that you've got a difficult few days ahead of you, being close with the family, Maria and the family, and of course you'll be speaking at a number of the memorials and of course the funeral for Chester, and we thank you for taking the time with us and sharing your thoughts and memories on Chester.
It's a pleasure, JP. I always say Chester he is my friend.
Yeah.
He's not, he was my friend.
He is our friend, yeah. And Faisal, from a Western Province Rugby point of view, we know that you guys have got the Chester State funeral, and everybody from Western Province Rugby will be going to the memorials and supporting the family, and we say thanks for you to you also for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, JP. It's good being here.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Right, folks, that's a wrap from us here at Cape Rugby TV, ending on a sad note, but we will always remember Chester Williams with a big heart and the biggest smile, and close friend of Cape Rugby TV. We did ask you on Facebook to share your tributes. Please keep doing so. We trust that you will have a fantastic rugby weekend, as we always do, and our thoughts, prayers and condolences go out, of course, to Maria and the family, and we trust that you will have a safe rugby weekend. We'll see you again next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.